Hello everyone, my name's Kitetsu and welcome back to my channel. Now in this video I'm going to be talking about the top 5 factions that I really want to return to Warhammer the Old World. You guys know by now that I'm extremely excited about the fact the Old World is returning. I've been purchasing all of the 8th edition rule books and army books like a madman because I'm absolutely obsessed with all of the backstory. You do have to bear with me because I am by no means an expert on fantasy lore, but I do intend to change that. And in fact, if you're interested in me doing a lore series for Warhammer Fantasy that is aimed at total beginners, then I think that could be quite fun, because basically as I do the reading myself, I could then make short little videos to guide you guys through what I'm reading. But yeah, bear with me, I'm not an expert, I'm learning as I go, and blimey, there's like 30 years worth of backstory here for me to pour through. But yeah, before I get into the video, please follow my Facebook group, come and join that, it's great fun. I think we hit 200 members today, which is absolutely crazy. I was never expecting it to be anywhere near that big, but I'm having a really good time on there. Like I said in my last video, it's just a really chilled out, nice place to share pictures of your minis, talk about your favorite factions, your favorite models, and yeah, it's totally aimed around Age of Sigmar, Fantasy, and Warhammer the Old World. It's called Kitetsu Warhammer Clan. I will leave a link in the top of the description, so go join that. But right, what you are looking at on the screen at the moment is the Citadel catalogue from 2010. If you guys have been into Warhammer as long as I have, you will remember that every year Games Workshop used to bring out a catalogue, and these things used to be one of my favourite things about the hobby. I think my oldest one goes back to around 1999 or something like that, but I would literally just pore over these books for endless hours. Now 2010 I believe is the last one they ever did, and I managed to track this copy down online. But yeah, I've been pouring through this again for hours. I've been reading the 8th edition hardback rulebook, trying to get my head around all these different factions and think about which ones I think need to return, which ones I think are likely to be really important for the Old World. But yeah, I've come up with a ranking in order of my top 5, and I'm actually quite pleased with this list. Obviously this is my personal list, it's going to be different to your list. If you agree with me, obviously let me know down in the comments. If you have a totally different idea, then obviously share that too. Now the first thing I do have to say is that I had to really separate this from what I think are my 5 favourite factions and what do I want to see in the Old World. And the reason I've done this will probably become apparent as I talk. So first of all, these are my top 5 favourite armies at the moment in Warhammer Fantasy. Number 1 would be the Empire. I've literally just started an Empire collection and I'm absolutely loving it. One idea I had literally today as a fun video I could make would be a what's it like getting into Warhammer Fantasy right now, because essentially that is what I'm doing. Although I was into it as a kid, all I cared about back then was wood elves. I wasn't bothered about anything that was happening outside of Athel Loren. I just cared about everything in that forest. But yeah, as I've got older, I'm now obviously interested in the entire thing. But yeah, number 1 would be the Empire, number 2 would be my trusty wood elves, number 3 would be the dwarfs, 4 would be the Skaven, and 5 would be the dark elves. Now the reason that I think that although these are my favourite, I don't necessarily want them to be a major focus of the Old World is the fact that especially for 4 of these factions, there are an awful lot of models still available in Age of Sigmar that you can buy, stick them on square bases, and they're good to go for fantasy. And I'm really hoping that there is going to be cross compatibility between these 2 game systems, because I think the best of both worlds is that people who already have an army from fantasy can still use them. People who want to have an army that they can use in fantasy, the Old World, and Age of Sigmar, you know, that would be absolutely ideal. Or alternatively, people like me who just want to go out and start a fantasy collection now without having to go on eBay and look for old stuff, which is fine, but I personally find it quite exciting ordering things from Games Workshop and knowing that they're still a current line. But yeah, I mean, the Empire, loads of their units are still available. You can still buy Karl Franz on Deathclaw, the handgunners, the spearmen, halberdiers, swordsmen, the Hellblaster volley cannon thing, all of it is still there, even the steam tank. Although they've lost quite a few characters, there's a lot there. The same goes for Skaven, even though they really need an update because quite a lot of their models are quite old. There's a lot of dwarf models elementals still available. Same goes for dark elves and wood elves. There's a lot available, but they did get rid of the Glade Guard recently, which is really annoying. And yeah, they're currently going on eBay for crazy prices. But yeah, so those are my top 5 favorite factions at the moment. And now I'm going to go into what I think we should see as a major focus for the old world. So the first thing we have to think about is it really going to be set during the Age of 3 Emperors? I really hope it does, because the more I read about it, the more fascinating this time is becoming. Now, we know so far that the Empire are going to be a major focus of this time period, but actually there's an awful lot of other things going on too. I've been looking through the massive 8th edition rulebook. There's a huge timeline in there, like it's about 4 pages long, and I've gone through the dates where the time of the 3 emperors, or the Age of 3 Emperors, sort of spans, picked out all the key things, and it's given me a really good idea of what we could see in the old world if this is indeed when it's going to be set. Sorry if it's a little bit difficult to read, I generated it on a website, but it starts in 1547 and ends in 2304 of the imperial calendar. But key events include Nagash coming back to life. There's Gorbad's massive war, that if this isn't going to be one of the major events of the old world, I would be quite surprised, because he literally kills Sigismund, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but one of the emperors at the times gets killed by Gorbad, and literally the capital of the empire, Altdorf, comes under siege. But Sigismund is already a name that we've seen on the cartography of the old world map that they previewed on Warhammer Community, so I'm really hoping that's a sign that this is going to be an event in this story, or this setting for Warhammer the Old World. But we also have the destruction of Mordheim, and not 1 nor 2 but 3 massive vampire wars. The first one led by Vlad von Carstein, the second one by Conrad, and the third one by Manfred. So those 3 vampire wars are absolutely major events during this time period. We also have a big invasion of Britannia. That was by Chaos Lord Charon, I think he was called, or Charon, I'm not really sure. But finally, right at the end of the Age of 3 Empires, there is the Great War against Chaos. So yeah, I'm predicting that all of these events could be massive. They could be a really interesting backdrop to this setting. Let me know, do you guys think it is going to be set during the Age of 3 Emperors? I know there's a little bit of a discrepancy between the names they've listed so far and the fact that they lived different generations, but the Age of 3 Emperors does span several hundred years, so I think it's quite likely, and I really hope this is the setting. Right, so let's get into my top 5 factions that I really want to see return. So far, all we've seen is a map of the Empire. We know that Kislev are returning. We know that the Empire is going to be a major focus, and also on that map, they showed the Chaos Wastes. So it makes sense to me that if Kislev are going to be there, and if we're going to have the Great War against Chaos, and there is in fact going to be this massive invasion from the north down into Kislev and below, then it absolutely makes sense that we are going to see Norska return, especially due to how cool they were in Total War Warhammer. I really hope that is going to be the case. They've never actually existed as a proper tabletop faction on their own. They've kind of been sort of merged in with the Warriors of Chaos, but that's definitely something I would like to see. And I've mentioned this before, but I could definitely imagine seeing a starter set with the Kislevs against the Norskans. I think that would be great. The 4th faction I would like to see returning are the Orcs and Goblins. If you click on Orc War Clans on the Age of Sigmar page of Games Workshop, it does feel incredibly sparse, like there's 2 pages worth, and that's even after they've merged 2 factions of Age of Sigmar together. If you compare that to what we had initially, where are we? Here we go, Orcs and Goblins. There were so many different models that now basically don't exist, like Azhag the Slaughterer. I mean, a lot of these are obviously going to be from different time periods, but there we go, we've even got our Gorbad, so he should be an absolutely major character in this time period. But so much of these original green skins have vanished and they don't exist anymore. You can't buy them even if you wanted to. So yeah, I could definitely see these making a return. What do you guys think? Can you see them coming back? Are you interested in seeing them return like they were, or are you not? Based on how important the invasion is of Gorbad, I would assume that they are going to play a major role. So in at number 3, I'm going to say the Empire. Now, although they have loads and loads of models available at the moment, literally just head over to the Cities of Sigmar page and you will see how many of these models still exist from the Empire. There are absolutely loads. But even though you can still buy quite a lot of the range as it stood in 2010, if they are going to be setting it in a new age, then I think it's really important that they bring out some new heroes and characters. It's quite an easy fix for Forge World to basically expand on what we've got and keep those relevant rather than to try and reboot the faction altogether. It sounds like a win-win situation to me to allow you to use all of your existing models and then to just add some brand new heroes that we can take to lead them. That's my thoughts on that, and as someone who's just started investing in an Empire army right now, which some people would say is foolish, it certainly gives me an appreciation for how people felt in Fantasy when they had these enormous armies that they could suddenly no longer use or that weren't supported anymore by Games Workshop. So I'm hoping I can still use my existing faction but with a host of new heroes and lords. In second place, I am going to go for the Vampire Counts. 3 major wars involving these guys, and they look like they have an incredibly rich and amazing backstory, so definitely a faction I really want to see. If you look at Age of Sigmar right now, there is an enormous vampire size hole in the range of models at the moment, and they were a faction that were absolutely loved by so many people. So yeah, they definitely need a massive return to form for the Vampire Counts. And finally, in first place, I am going to go for Britannia. Why Britannia at number 1? Well, I've been drawn up in all the hype of how much everyone else is excited for Britannia. Pretty much every forum or every page that you find that's been talking about the old world is saying how desperately they want the Britannia models to come back. Now, this is one of the first lines that was totally scrapped by Games Workshop. Some of these models are going for serious amounts of money on eBay, so if you still have them, then you are incredibly lucky at the moment, but they definitely deserve to be rebooted. If we look back in that catalogue, look how fantastic some of these models look. The knights are absolutely amazing, but something that I'm really drawn to with Britannia is the kind of feudal system they've gone for. I especially love all of the men-at-arms and the bowman models. They look absolutely fantastic, and they always had their really awesome trebuchet as well. So yeah, definitely a faction that I want to see coming back. Right, now to finish off the video, if you have never really been into Warhammer Fantasy and you have no idea who these factions are, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out the introductory paragraph for 4 of these factions, not really Norska because they were never really in the book, but for just those 4 factions, Britannia, the Vampire Counts, Orcs and Goblins, and the Empire, I'm just going to introduce them as they were in the book. But before I do that, I want to say one final thing, and that is that I'm kind of hoping that alongside these factions that they focus on, they do decide to support the other factions with some new heroes as well. So if I go back to my top 5 favourite armies, we could definitely do with some new Skaven and Dwarf characters. I would absolutely love a brand new and updated model of Malekith, and in fact, if we go back to the timeline here, when the Great War against Chaos occurs, there's also an enormous invasion of the Dark Elves against Ulthuan and the High Elves, so plenty of room there to bring back some of our favourite characters from those 2 factions. But there's also models like Orion that are so rare at the moment that, again, they cost so much money that, yeah, at the moment I would be really happy if they just pick some of these super rare, super old models and just update them across the board. Now, I was really tempted in my top 5 as well to put the Tomb Kings in. I love them, they're great, their storyline is brilliant, but I don't really see them being relaunched. It just seems incredibly unlikely the more I think about it. I mean, at the moment it's a blank page. Games Workshop can go and prove me wrong. Maybe they will bring them back, but they just don't really seem that relevant to this time period, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. But right, introducing these factions, let's start with the Orcs and Goblins. So, the Orcs and Goblins are a scourge upon the lands. They are ferocious raiders that spread war to every corner of the world. The greenskins are so eager for battle that when lacking a foe, they will gladly attack each other. So numerous and warlike are the orcs and goblins that should they ever stop fighting themselves and unite into a cohesive force, they would sweep away all opposition in a brutal tide of violence. The Empire of Man is the greatest nation of the old world, spanning the continent from the southern border princes to snow-clad Kislev in the north. Over 2 millennia of bloodshed have passed since the coming of the Empire's founder, Sigmar. Yet thanks to the discipline and determination of its armies, the Empire has grown strong, a realm of progress and civilization amidst a sea of savagery. Then let's look at the vampire counts. It says, in the cobwebbed castles of the old world lurk the vampire counts, masters of undeath and a scourge upon all living things. Far stronger than mortal men and serpent fast, vampires are frighteningly accomplished warriors. Raw dark magic flows in their veins, and at their command great hordes of decayed and rotting undead warriors rise from the grave to wage war upon the living. And then finally, our fan favourites, Britannia. Britannia is the land of chivalry and honour. Its knights are the most valiant cavalrymen in the old world, watched over by a mysterious goddess known only as the Lady. In times of war, each of the noble lords of the realm summons his retinue of thousands of loyal knights, a truly majestic sight in their shining armour and proud heraldic liveries. The charge of the cavalry of Britannia is an avalanche of steel that drives everything before it with lance, hoof and blessed blade. So there we have it, a nice little introduction to 4 of these factions. Let me know down below which of these factions you want to see the most. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like button, it really helps me out. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel as well. Let me know down below if you would like to see me start delving into the lore of the old world. It's something that I would certainly be interested in doing, but breaking it down into smaller chunks. I think some of my past lore videos have been a little bit too dense and they take me way too long to plan. That's the main reason I stopped doing them. But yeah, don't forget to also come and find my Facebook group as well. I'm going to leave this video here. Like I said, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys really soon.